Hello, beautiful people. Hello. It's Lulu. What if every frustrating relationship pattern, the same arguments, disappointments, feeling misunderstood, could be traced back to one relationship you've likely been forgetting? The one with yourself. Or if you have been working on your relationship with yourself, you may not have been as successful as you'd like because it's bloody hard work. And plus, we're constantly told to focus outward, to work on our relationships with others. Our partners, children, colleagues, friends, lovers, parents, family. Today we're starting a conversation about relationships. And we're going to broaden this conversation over the coming weeks. But this is the most foundational, most fundamental place to start. Welcome to the Lulu Essey Podcast, where we do things differently. There's no editing, no polish, no studio magic, just honest conversations that offer you practical tools to transform your life from the inside out. But before we begin, it's time for me to fess up. Big time. And as it happens, it ties perfectly into what we're talking about today. Last week, when I recorded episode 29, it came out longer than I expected, and I panicked. Was the episode too long for you? I'm always respectful of your time. So I did something I've never done before. I broke my own rule. I went into the editing platform and I deleted all the pauses. Now, I didn't change any words and I didn't add anything. But when I listened back to episode 29, I literally sound like a hamster on speed because there are no natural pauses. It was both horrifying and very funny at the same time. And then I had this internal dilemma. Should I upload the original version? What's the honest thing to do here? And of course, I thought about being laughed at and potentially ridiculed. And then I remembered my promise to you. Honesty, not perfection. So I left it as it is. Was I editing? Yes, kind of. Was it perfect? Definitely not. And that's exactly the point. I embraced my very own, very imperfect action. And I want to let you know as well that I'm pivoting away from what I mentioned last week about revisiting confidence, clarity, and calm. Relationships is such a massive topic, and we've talked about the 3 C's recently, so I want to give this conversation the space it deserves. This weekend, I had the incredible opportunity to attend a workshop with Elizabeth Gilbert. And if any of you ever get the chance to work with her, grab it with both hands. She is remarkable. Beyond all her accolades and accomplishments as an author, she is deeply spiritual, and at the same time, she's like a stand-up comic. She has this incredible sense of humor that it reminds me not to take myself too seriously, while still honoring how deeply important this work is and what a profound difference it can make in our lives when we commit to it. For those of you who don't know who she is, she rose to fame with her novel Eat, Pray, Love. She has written 10 books, and if you're interested in creative living, well beyond being an artist, but more about making your life a work of art, then you must check out her book, Big Magic. It's nonfiction. So some of what I'm sharing today was inspired by her workshop, and I want to acknowledge that openly. But what fascinated me is how much of her wisdom connects to things I've been teaching without realizing the similarities. It's like finding out you've been speaking the same language all along. And speaking of language, I have mentioned to you previously that my personal theme for 2025 is surrender. And that's going to weave through our conversation today about relationships, starting with the most important one you will ever have. Because a deeply liberating truth is every relationship you have with others is a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. Because how you relate to yourself sets the tone for every relationship in your life. And many of us have never truly, consciously worked on that foundational relationship. So that's exactly where we're going to start. So let's begin with the foundation. What do I mean when I say the relationship with yourself is foundational to every other relationship? Focus for a moment and think about how you talk to yourself when you make a mistake. Are you kind and understanding, or are you harsh and critical? Now, think about how you respond when your partner, friend, family member, or colleague makes a mistake. I'm willing to bet there's a direct connection. However, there's also a very interesting paradox here. Because we are often far more willing to be kinder to others than we are to ourselves. We all do it. Show others kindness we are incapable, or rather, unwilling to show ourselves. So it begs the question, what makes other people worthy of your love and not you? Why are you not worthy of the same love you give so generously to others? And when your inner critic is running the show, it often echoes into your relationships with others. That critical voice inside doesn't just stay inside, it spills out into how we relate, react, and retreat. If you're constantly judging yourself, you likely judge others. If you can't forgive yourself for being human, you'll struggle to forgive others. If you don't trust yourself to handle difficult emotions, you'll probably feel overwhelmed when others bring their big feelings to you. But here's the beautiful part. It works in the positive direction too. When you develop curiosity about your own patterns, you become curious about others instead of reactive. When you can sit with your own discomfort, you can hold space for someone else's struggle. This work is about becoming aware, bringing mindfulness to our relationships with others, and a deep sense of curiosity. And that awareness is where all transformation begins. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. I've tried self-love. I've done the affirmations. I've looked in the mirror and told myself I'm amazing. And it just makes me feel like a fraud. I get it. That's why this is not about forcing self-love, because that doesn't work. Or better said, that does not bring any value to your life. So we're starting with something much more gentle and doable. Awareness, openness, and curiosity about yourself. What if, instead of trying to love everything about yourself immediately, you simply became willing to observe yourself? To become what we've already spoken about, to be your own kind witness. This means catching yourself in moments of self-judgment, and instead of fighting it or fixing it, just noticing it. Oh, there I go again, being really hard on myself. Or, interesting. I always do this thing where I assume people are pissed off with me when they don't respond to my text immediately. The magic isn't in stopping these patterns right away. It's in creating space between you and your automatic reactions. And the more we notice these patterns without judgment, the more we build self-trust. Trusting that we can sit with discomfort, stay with ourselves, and not abandon our inner experience. The magic is in the space, or you might want to see it as a pause. When you observe yourself with curiosity instead of judgment, something magical happens. You start to loosen the grip of harsh self-criticism. And here's what I find absolutely fascinating. Our contradictions become interesting rather than shameful. You might notice you're someone who craves alone time, but also gets lonely. Someone who values honesty, but sometimes avoids difficult conversations. Someone who wants to be spontaneous, but also needs to plan everything. These contradictions aren't problems to solve. They're the beautiful complexity of being human. And when you can observe them with gentle curiosity, you actually start to understand yourself in a completely different way. And now I want to talk about fear. Because this brings me to something that came up powerfully in Elizabeth Gilbert's workshop. Our relationship with fear. Because so much of our self-judgment, or in other words, so much of our lack of self-love actually comes from a place of fear. The Buddhists have this beautiful understanding, and Elizabeth spoke about this too. Instead of pushing fear away, we can invite it to sit with us and have a conversation. I remember speaking about this in terms of self-doubt, and that when self-doubt knocks at my door, I invite it in for a little while, hear what it has to say, and then I ask it to leave. And now I want to talk about this very specifically in terms of fear, because our fears have such a powerful hold over us. What if fear isn't your enemy trying to sabotage you? What if it's actually a protector trying to keep you safe? The most primal objective of fear is to literally stop us from dying. Yes, fear has one job: to keep us alive. That's it. So when fear shows up and starts that familiar voice in your head, don't try that, you'll fail. And worse, people will laugh and think you're dumb for even daring to try. Don't speak up. They'll think you're stupid or arrogant. Don't get too excited about this. You'll just be disappointed. Don't dream too big, because dreams that size are meant for other people, not you. What if that voice is actually trying to protect you from what it perceives as danger? A danger to your survival, because it's new and unfamiliar. The problem is our modern lives rarely involve actual life or death situations. We've evolved from those days, but our fear system has not. If we are new to or afraid of public speaking, fear treats that as if you were being attacked by a predator. And likewise, it treats rejection like exile from the tribe, an exile that may well lead to your death. This is where nervous system awareness becomes so important. Understanding that our physical response says danger, even when our adult self knows we're safe. So here's what I invite you to try. The next time you notice fear or that harsh inner critic, instead of fighting it or believing it completely, try having a conversation with it. You might say something like, I notice you're here, fear. What are you trying to protect me from? What are you worried will happen? And then listen, really listen. You might be surprised by what comes up. Maybe your fear of starting that business isn't about failure. Maybe it's about success, changing your life in ways you can't control. Maybe your fear about that difficult conversation isn't about conflict. It's about discovering something you're not ready to know. When you understand what fear is actually protecting you from, you can have a real conversation with it. You can acknowledge its concern while also making conscious choices about how you want to move forward. I want to share a powerful exercise Elizabeth Gilbert had us do this weekend around fear. She asked us to write a letter from our fear, and I'm inviting you to do the same. Now I know you can come up with a million real practical excuses why you don't have the time to write this letter, and I'm sure many of them are valid. But I encourage you, I urge you to make the time to do this exercise because it is radically powerful. Before we get into it, the objective here is to let fear speak, to respect it and let it have its say. Because when we do that, it loosens its grip on us. The intensity dials down. Fear wants to be heard, and the harder we push against it, the stronger it grips us. So why not invite fear in for tea and hear what it has to say? So this is how Liz, as she refers to herself, had us start our letter. Dear, and write your name. I am your fear, and this is what I want to tell you. And then just write what comes to you. Don't overthink it. Don't try and write poetry or be profound. Just let the pen meet the page and write what comes into your mind. And she has this wonderful practice of never asking her workshop participants to do anything she doesn't do herself. So she shared her letter from fear with us. So in that spirit, I will share part of mine with you because mine was really long. Here goes. Dear Lulu, I am your fear, and this is what I want you to know. I am afraid that you will never amount to anything. I am afraid that now that you no longer have a full-time job, you will fail at whatever you try, and that you will end up with no money, no friends, alone. I am afraid that the partner you love so dearly will leave you. I am afraid that people will think you are a fraud. I am afraid that you will die alone and scared. I am afraid that you will give up on yourself and lose your spark and harm yourself again. I am afraid that you will never be able to sleep again without your meds. I am afraid that all those dreams and hopes you carry with you will die. I am afraid that all the good things about you are not real and that people will find out they are not real and that you will be alone. Sincerely, your fear. Wow, that was a lot. And did you notice how my letter was sort of just rambling and didn't really have a logical sequence to it? I just let the pen move and wrote whatever came to mind without thinking about it or censoring it. We shared our letters with the complete stranger sitting next to us. And here's what's so striking. When my workshop partner read her letter, I could see immediately that none of her fears were true about her. Sometimes we need others to see our worth before we can see it ourselves. And then we just let the letters be. Nothing more to do. That is the whole point. This is not about working through your fears, fixing them or resolving them, because fear will always be there. But we can loosen the grip it has on us. We can give it space to talk and let it say what it has to say, and then politely ask it to leave. And here is something very important to remember. You don't write this letter once and then you're liberated from fear for eternity. No. Just like loving ourselves, it's a daily practice. And by that, I don't mean you have to write these letters every day, because that would be hell. But just be aware. Be curious, create space, and let your fear speak. Because when you let it speak, it no longer has control over you. It's there, but it doesn't have you in such a tight grip. And just so you know, we did a really delightful exercise right after the fear letter. And it didn't feel heavy or traumatic after. I felt lighter. It felt easier, milder. So again, I really encourage you to give yourself this gift and let your fear speak. Something really powerful happens when you let your pen meet the page. But as with anything, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Or try another way around and speak to your fear in your mind. Visualize your conversation with it. And if that feels too triggering, that is okay. Remember, there are no rules here. You get to decide what works for you in your life at this moment. So what does this mean for our relationship with others? When you develop this curious, compassionate relationship with yourself, including your fears and contradictions, you naturally bring that same quality of attention, of awareness to your relationship with others. Instead of immediately judging your partner for being late again, you might get curious about what's really going on and not making it all about you. Awareness and curiosity over judgment and fixing, always. Instead of taking your friend's mood personally, you can hold space for their struggle without making it about you and what you did or didn't do. The foundation you're building with yourself becomes the foundation for every interaction you have. And here's what I invite you to start this week. Just notice. Notice when you're being harsh with yourself. Notice when fear shows up. Notice your patterns and your contradictions. You may start to see the outlines of your relationship patterns more clearly. How certain fears or assumptions shape how you show up. You don't have to fix anything yet. Just observe with the same curiosity you'd bring to watching an interesting documentary about someone else's life. Because that's what we're doing. We're becoming the loving documentary of our own beautiful, messy, gloriously human experience. I'd like to close with a gentle reminder. Now, we are aware that how we relate to ourselves sets the tone for every relationship in our life. Next week, we're going to build on this foundation and explore how the relationship with yourself shows up in your relationships with others, your patterns, your triggers, and how understanding yourself changes everything about how you connect. If this episode helped you see your own patterns more clearly or softened your inner critic even just a little, please share it with someone you love. You never know who may need this reminder. And if you have 2 seconds, rating this podcast helps more people find these conversations. For daily inspiration and bite-sized tiny tools, you can find me on Instagram at lulu.essey or check out my YouTube channel for quick mental fitness practices. Remember, the most important relationship you'll ever have is happening right now, and it's the one with yourself. Be gentle with that person because they're doing the best they can. And as always, what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And today, like every day, with curiosity, compassion, awareness, and courage, this comes straight from my heart to yours.